So, Shang Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Um, I probably will go into spoilers, so just off the top, I'm going to say that I like this movie, and I guess I would recommend this movie, but it's not a perfect movie. Uh, so now to proceed with the actual full spoiler thoughts on this. Okay, so it's a 2 hour movie, and it didn't feel long. Like the Green Knight. I think I checked my clock 4 or 5, probably more than that times. In this one, I only checked it once just to kind of get a general sense of, where are we? We've done some things and so forth. Are we heading into? And we were. And that was it. So the 2 hours flew by. It was, an enjoyable movie for sure. It is, I guess you can kind of loosely say it's a Asian Marvel movie, basically, is what it is. Like I'm not saying this was completely made to appease to the Asian market, but you can kind of get the general sense that Disney wanted money from the Asian market. So let's do a Marvel movie, but we'll sculpt it to be Asian appeasing. Fine, not a problem with that. Whatever. The martial arts in the movie is fantastic. Um, Not as much wire fu as I call it um, as that I thought there was going to be. Because that really kind of bugs me. Like, if some of you have ever seen Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, wonderful movie, but the one thing that really dragged it down, at least in my eyes, as a kung fu watching movie, was all the wire work, where they were clearly on wires, jumping from rooftop to rooftop to rooftop, right? Um, Not as much wire fu in this movie, which was great. Great martial arts, great choreography. You can definitely feel the Asian filmmaking technique influence in it. Definitely in most of those scenes. But as I said at the beginning, it's not a perfect movie. I think my main kind of, I wouldn't say quibble, but the main thing that I couldn't get a grasp on was the main character, Shang-Chi himself. Nothing wrong with the actor. Did a fine job as acting, did a fine job in his acting, all that type of stuff. I'm talking about the way they wrote the character. This movie is structured a little differently in the sense of instead of having Joe Blow, um, maybe he has some negative qualities or whatnot, and he has to overcome them. He has to make them right and gets his powers and sees the wrongs that he's done or whatever. No, this one here is there's like a little bit of backstory about the Ten Rings. Then we see technically his father and his mother. They have the child. They have Shang Chi, plus a sister that they don't reveal until like a quarter of the way through the movie, but that doesn't really matter. And then he's an adult. But I didn't feel connected to Shang Chi. Was my problem. Um, like in Iron Man, Tony Stark has some negative qualities to him. He's arrogant and self-absorbed and all that type of stuff. Um, but you can kind of get the sense that he's a good guy at heart. Shang, I don't know if you can hear that or not. My cat has decided to put the wind up her butt. Shang-Chi is essentially a flawless character. Not that every character needs to have flaws, but like in our first action sequence, he is approached on a bus by some hooligans. Not hooligans, but they're like henchmen of who we think is the main bad guy. And there's a fight scene on the bus. Um, and it was a great fight scene, great choreographed, all that type of stuff. Um, but the thing with Shang-Chi is that he was the perfect hero. He would save not that anyone needs to die, but he would um, do everything possible to be a good guy without hurting anyone. Without well, actually, that's a lie. He does grab a chick's laptop and uses it as a shield, and then gives it back to her in two pieces. But like, he's the quintessential Superman, where nobody gets hurt, nobody has any major problems while he defeats the bad guy. And I would be fine with a character like that later in the movie. Like, we're just learning who this guy is. And I don't know, I just felt like he's Zoom. I just felt like he's too perfect of a protagonist. If you can really say that's a quibble, a problem or anything. And I guess the reason being is because you don't have a sense of what he's trying to overcome in this movie. In this movie, he starts off as, a badass kung fu master and all that type of stuff. Doesn't hurt anyone, doesn't really have any negative qualities or any of that. And there's nothing for him to overcome. There's nothing for him to change as a character. Now, unless I missed it, which is entirely possible. Like, I watch movies, but I'm not like a movie critic of, oh, I know this is the Stanislavski writing or that type of stuff. That's not me. But I just felt like the character didn't really go on a journey at all. He also has a sister in the movie, as I mentioned earlier. And I cared less about her than the main character. And she's not exactly, part of the main character, but they're kind of like a team throughout the movie. And yeah, I really just... They tried to give her a backstory that, her father's empire never only trained in boys, so she had to watch them and train herself. That's a fine story, like a backstory, but I wasn't invested in either of the characters at all. Who I was invested in, who I think is an absolute darling, and I've only ever seen her in 2 movies, was Awkwafina, and they bring back Sir Ben Kingsley as Trevor, whatever his last name is. They tried to retcon Iron Man 3, right? Because, spoiler for Iron Man 3, they set up that the Mandarin was going to be back for Iron Man, and it turns out they did this brilliant double cross where the Mandarin was actually just an actor pretending to be the Mandarin, and what's his name? I can't remember his name right now. He's from Memento. He was the real Mandarin, as it were. And in the comics, the Mandarin was this very much Asian stereotype who had the 10 rings. They were 10 rings he wore on his fingers. That each ring had specific powers. Very similar to the Infinity Gauntlet, but I'm going to assume not as powerful and so forth. But the MCU is like, well, we've already done this, and we want to do Shang-Chi and the 10 Rings. So it turns out that Trevor was not working for that Mandarin. He was working for Shang-Chi's dad, actually. And they were going to execute him, but he turned out to be such a phenomenal actor that he brought him back to his fortress where he performs plays for the men. All right, this is really, really stretching it, but fine, I'll take it. Because Sir Ben Kingsley, and I'm going to call him Sir Ben Kingsley. They didn't even give him Sir Ben Kingsley in the credits. He is a Sir, but whatever. Phenomenal. I loved him as Trevor. And as I said, Awkwafina. I've only seen her in 2 movies. I've seen her in this, and then I saw her in a movie that really wasn't my type of movie, but it was, it was a movie I took my mom to called Crazy Rich Asians. And I thought she was the best character in that movie. And she is a delight in this movie, too. I don't know what it is. She just has that energy, that awkward type energy in this movie. So she was awesome. And Ben Kingsley. As for the story itself, it was a unique story. Yeah, it was a unique story. Very Asian themed, very mythical themed, dragons and soul eaters and all that type of stuff. Um, and I know Marvel's trying something new, and I applaud them for that. But there was just a part of me in the back of the head who just wanted like a bad guy. They first set up that Shang-Chi's dad is kind of the bad guy. Like in the beginning of the movie, he finds the 10 rings, which they never tell us how or where. They kind of hint at it at the end of the movie in the credits, but he just has these 10 rings and he rules. He rules the world, even though he doesn't rule the world because nobody really knows about him. That's weird as well. Like he topples governments and he destroys armies. He lives for thousands of years, but nobody really knows who he is and nobody really fears him. It's kind of like it's a pocket empire that doesn't have any influence in the world unless they want to just try to give it. It's weird. Anyways, they set him up as kind of the bad guy. He meets a woman, has his 2 kids, and we think he's a family man. But then he loses his wife, becomes a bad guy again, but really his entire motivation is to try to free his wife, who he thinks is being held in a village, when in actuality it's an evil, soul-sucking demon that's convincing him that they have his wife, so he has to go rescue her. Like, I'm not saying that every movie needs to have a clear protagonist and a clear antagonist, and then they sort of build the characters up until they conflict and good guy wins or anything like that. No. But it kind of feels like one of 2 theories. One, we didn't want Shang-Chi's family to have any sort of bad guy tendencies. And I don't know why. Or 2, it could very well be that they wrote something, they were going to write him to be the bad guy, and then Disney stepped in, Feige stepped in, whoever, and they're like, no, we need more stories for Shang-Chi later, to get the Asian market, I presume. Let's actually make him a sympathetic bad guy, and then we'll just bring in this giant monster at the end that everyone can fight. You know. I also had some other problems with the movie in the sense of they just kind of find what they need. To give you an example, they need to get to this village, right? Because the dad is going to burn it down if he doesn't get his wife back. And we learn that the dad's going to be is going to go there in a day or 2 or something like that, because the way to the village is accessible once a year for whatever reason. I don't even explain that. It's available. It's for one day a year you can get to this village. Shang-Chi's, I'm not going to help you. So the dad throws him, Awkwafina, and his sister in prison. Not really prison. They just throw him behind a door, I guess, and lock it. And this door leads down a hall to another door where they meet Sir Ben Kingsley, who just happens to have a creature as a pet that is from the village, who knows how to get to the village anytime it wants. And then they just happen to escape. Like I said, it's more of we just happen to find this. Oh, we just happen to find this. I don't want to say it's sloppy writing, but it certainly was convenient. And that happened a number of times in the film and so forth. But for a Marvel movie, for an action film, for a kung fu film, I enjoyed it. I really did. They bring back, I think his name is Juan. Doctor Strange's, I guess it was first his instructor, who's now his basically sidekick. They bring him back a couple times, which was great. I loved seeing Juan. He was cool. There was also, again, spoilers again, we had a cameo in the post credits from Bruce Banner with a broken arm. So I wonder what that's all about. Because I can't remember the Incredible Hulk or even Bruce Banner breaking his arm in Endgame, but I could be wrong. I wasn't too fond of Endgame. And then we also see Captain Marvel, who, again, she's so overpowered that beep, 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 oh, I gotta deal with this, bye, and then she just goes. I don't know what. I'm going to assume that's to lead into Captain Marvel 2, but whatever. And then the post credit scene is, it turns out the sister who was supposed to dismantle the Ten Rings army is now in charge, and apparently the Ten Rings will return. So yeah, standard Marvel fare, good movie. A couple times where the CGI didn't quite make it. They were on the bus, and I'm like, ooh, that looks very fake. A couple times, you can also see the outline in the green screen when they were fighting. But I mean, whatever. Yeah. As for Marvel movies, I believe the next one is going to be The Immortals, which I guess I'm kind of looking forward to, because that kind of expands the MCU's Cosmos division, as I call it. Yeah, I think that's about all I need to add to this. All right, see you guys later.